Projekt Guru.
Всем привет! С вами Zak Novak на радиостанции Novorossia Rocks. Welcome to Novorossia Rocks radio station. This is Zak Novak, your American in downtown Donetsk. Program is called Projekt Guru, and Guru is back with us in the house. Guru, thank you so much for all the hard work that you do. Andre, my engineer, as well. Let's start off with terrorist organization NATO and EUCOM ready for war with Russia. The terrorist organizations U.S. European Command, EUCOM, and NATO are prepared to fight and win against Russia if necessary. U.S. Supreme Allied Commander Europe General Philip Breedlove said on Thursday. Breedlove explained that the ERI is an attempt to begin reshaping the European Command and the NATO force structure to be able now to confront someone that does not wish to share our norms and values in Europe. Do you hear that, Guru? That does not want to share our norms and values? Share the norms of NATO, terrorist organization? Are you kidding me? Russia has repeatedly warned that NATO's attempts to expand on its borders, as well as more recently amass troops and equipment, constitute provocative acts that are contrary to previous agreements and can undermine regional and global stability. To counter Russia, terrorist organization EUCOM, working with allies and partners, is determining Russia now and preparing to fight and win if necessary, Breedlove said. Since 2014, the United States regime and terrorist organization NATO have been focused on rebuilding military capacity and force readiness in Europe under the European Reassurance Initiative, ERI. Breedlove explained that under ERI, NATO will preposition its second heavy force in Europe, which he said will be used not for practicing, but for war fighting. In early February, the U.S. Department of Defense requested a Europe-related defense budget of $3.4 billion for fiscal year 2017. United States and NATO's European Reassurance Initiative, ERI, is a return to a posture of deterrence against Russia, General Philip Breedlove told the House of Representatives Armed Service Committee on Thursday. As a result of NATO's alleged partnership posture towards Russia, the alliance downsized its forces, headquarters, and capabilities. The ERI takes a multiple-pronged approach to rebuild a forward-deployed, ready force structure in Europe, as well as better infrastructure and pre-positioned military equipment. For the past 2 decades, we have been in position where we have been trying to make a partner out of Russia and Europe, Breedlove stated. ERI is one of the steps along the way to position us to get to where we need to be to deter Russia. Breedlove explained that the ERI is an attempt to begin reshaping the European Command and the NATO force structure to be able now to confront someone that does not wish to share our norms and values. You gotta be kidding me. In its recently released 2017 budget request, the U.S. Department of Defense asked for $3.4 billion to fund the ERI, a 4-fold increase over the 2016 funding level. NATO terrorist organization. Guru, but of course, missing cargo, UN airdrop, a mystery in Syria. The UN made much of its airdrop of 21 tons of food to the Syrian city of Deir ez-Zor, at present controlled largely by ISIS, but contested in fighting with Syrian troops. Today, the UN admitted that all 21 tons ended up either destroyed or lost. Fearing that they get targeted by missiles, the plane flew at high altitude and dropped the 21 pallets of food from up there, figuring that they just parachute down into the drop area. That didn't work nearly as well as they'd hoped. 4 of the 21 pallets parachutes just flat out didn't open and smashed into the ground, being destroyed. 7 others opened and landed, but ended up in the middle of a field of landmines, so they can't be recovered at any rate. The last 10 are the biggest mystery, UN officials say. The last 10 pallets drifted away on their way down, and they have no idea where they landed or who ended up with them. These, at the very least, may not have been destroyed and may be feeding someone, somebody, but who is unclear. Another question mark by the UN. Andre, Guru, Argentina rights group to ask Obama to apologize and declassify dictatorship documents. A prominent Argentina rights activist said Thursday she would ask President Barack Obama to declassify U.S. documents related to the country's dictatorship when he visits next month. Obama is expected in Argentina on March 23rd, 24th, immediately following his historic trip to Cuba. The dates overlap with a mass protest marking the 40th anniversary of the coup that led to Argentina's 76 to 1980 1983 military dictatorship. Several rights groups have called on Obama to apologize on behalf of his country for the United States support of the military regime at that time. Estela del Carlotto, head of the Grandmothers of the Plaza de Mayo rights group, said her group would welcome the chance to meet with Obama to make the declassification request in person. We want to ask him to declassify the archives on everything related to the repression across Latin America and especially our country. Military dictatorships across Latin America in the 70s and the 80s collaborated in tracking down leftist opponents in a scheme known as the Operation Condor. Some 30,000 people were killed or disappeared during Argentina's dirty war period. An estimated 500 babies were stolen by the regime, which abducted, tortured, and killed opponents and their suspected sympathizers. De Carlotto's group is attempting to find children stolen or illegally adopted during the dictatorship. She believes that the U.S. documents will shed light on those responsible for child kidnappings and provide a lot of information of historic value. The prominent activist spoke to reporters at Remembrance Park, where she accompanied visiting French President François Hollande as he paid a tribute to dictatorship victims. The site, located on the shores of the River Plate, is a memorial that includes the names of more than 9,000 dictatorship victims engraved on a sloping wall. 22 of the victims, including 2 nuns, were French citizens. President Mauricio Macri on Tuesday met with leading rights groups to work out a common agenda during Obama's visit. Sorry, Obama, but there is no plan B for Syria, Maria Zakharova. Russia said that Syria's ceasefire process was underway despite what it said were attempts by some U.S. officials to sabotage it, while reiterating that Russian warplanes would continue pounding what it called terrorist groups. The cessation of hostilities agreed by the United States and Russia, which took hold on Saturday morning from midnight. Damascus has agreed to the deal, as has the main opposition alliance, though it is only ready to commit for 2 weeks given its deep reservations. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said some U.S. officials had tried to sabotage the ceasefire plan by interpreting it from such cardinally different points. By and large, a number of U.S. officials, in fact, attempt to call into question the agreements reached, which were approved by the 2 presidents, she told a news briefing on Thursday. It actually looked like sabotage. Commenting on the current state of interaction with Washington, she said, "We are in contact with American officials. The process is underway and it's very active. We have an exchange of information. Our military are in contact." Officials in Moscow have been unnerved by statements by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry shortly after the ceasefire plan was reached that Washington was also considering an unspecified Plan B. There is no Plan B on Syria's ceasefire and will not be one, quoted Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The cessation of hostilities plan does not include Islamic State or the Nusra Front, an al-Qaeda affiliate that is widely deployed in opposition-held areas. The opposition has expressed fears government forces backed by the Russian Air Force will continue to attack rebels under the pretext of targeting Nusra. Zakharova hit out at unspecified Western media, creating an impression that Russia will stop its operation against Islamic State, the Nusra Front, and other terrorist groups. There was no talk of ending the fight against terrorism. There is no such talk, and there won't be any. Drunk Ukraine junta forces once again unleash bomb mortar attack, including grenade launchers. Once again, drunk Nazi Ukrainian soldiers indiscriminately targeting the airport and civilian areas of Donetsk People's Republic. The reckless behavior while commanders and American trainers look on with laughter as they unleash a barrage of heavy weapons fire targeting civilians as well as the Volvo Center area. Nazi Ukrainian forces shelled from mortars the territory of the DPR, Donetsk People's Republic, targeting once again the airport, Volvo Center, in the northern suburb of Donetsk overnight. Last night at around 10:30 p.m., Nazi Ukrainian forces opened fire from mortars with the calibers of 82 and 120s on the territory and around the airport. Simultaneously, the forces began shelling the area of Volvo Center once again. The shelling was carried out from positions in the villages Peski and Opotnoye. Kiev Junta forces used grenade launchers, small arms fire. Last night, 2 freedom fighters from the DPR were injured in a shelling of the western suburbs of Donetsk. Let me bring in my co-host Natalia. She will give you more news from Novorossia.
Significant event was yesterday. Campaign overnight dedicated to heroes volunteers in Donbass was held in Moscow. Charity campaign Volunteers Defenders of Motherland was held in the Central Museum of the Great World War on the Poklonskaya Hill in Moscow on 26 February. Organizer of this event was International Voluntary Group Moscow Donbass. The campaign was held at the support of Russian public organization Russian Volunteers Union, Fund Orthodox Crimea, and Center of Social Humanitarian Support of Donbass People. Organizers point out that the history of voluntary movement in Russia counts not one decade, and Russian volunteers fought in armies of many countries. The Defenders' Day has a special sense this year, and the campaign devoted to volunteers who are in Donbass now. Participants saw the exhibition called Children of War Paint Peace, provided by pupils of Donbass schools, short movies of Yana Poplavska, and the best volunteers and participants of humanitarian convoys were awarded. Great news for Novorossia. Vladislav Berdichevsky about draft law Consular Statute of the Donetsk People's Republic. Today, Consular Statute of the Donetsk People's Republic will be voted on in the People's Council of the DPR today, 27 February 2016. The goal of consular affairs is to protect rights and interests of the Donetsk People's Republic, its entities and citizens, to develop friendly relations with other states, to extend economic, trade, scientific and cultural relations. According to the law draft, the establishment of consular relations of the Donetsk People's Republic with other states is carried out by mutual consent in regard to admitted norms of principles of international law, international agreements of the DPR, acting law and the legal enforceable enactments of the DPR. Two consular functions are referred: consideration of issues of citizenship of Donetsk People's Republic and the decisions execution on citizenship questions of the DPR in the margins of the powers established by legislation of the Donetsk People's Republic, registration and issuance of documents that confirm citizen identity of the DPR outside the state of the DPR, issuance of temporary documents and documents for foreign citizens to arrive and depart the Republic. Very significant for DPR Novorossia citizens, law will be adopted today. More information you can see on our site Novorossia Today. Ukraine keeps on carrying out genocide of Donbass population. Several days ago, Kiev authorities announced proudly about great work done by Security Service of Ukraine and authorities of Ukraine. Finally, they managed to deprive 150,000 people of social benefits. It is necessary to point out that Prime Minister of Ukraine, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, expressed satisfaction of these results. How do you think how can be called this attitude of Ukraine to Donbass people? How do you think, isn't it a genocide of population of Donbass?
Really bad last night, Guru. The KKK, the Nazi group, 3 people were stabbed, including 1 who was critically wounded, and 13 were arrested when the Ku Klux Klan KKK Rally in Anaheim erupted in violence Saturday. A small group of people representing the Klan had announced that it would hold a rally at Pearson Park at 1:30 p.m. A large crowd gathered at the park, with many demanding to know why Anaheim police did not have a larger presence at the scene before the violence broke out. Santa Ana neighborhood was also blanketed with KK flyers on Martin Luther King Jr. Day last year. An 8-foot cross was burned outside the home of a black man's home in Anaheim Hills in 2003, and FBI investigated the case as a hate crime. More news, photos, and video footage of the violence, bloody violence, on Novorossia Today. Check it out. 70 killed and 100 injured in crowded market by ISIS motorcycle bombers. A pair of ISIS motorcycle bombers detonated in the Shiite district of Sadr City in the capital city of Baghdad. The attack killed at least 70 people and wounded another 100 in crowded mobile phone market. ISIS was quick to issue a statement confirming responsibility, saying they will continue to attack rejectionists wherever they can find them. This was the biggest ISIS attack in Iraq so far this year. This was the second major ISIS attack in Baghdad in the past few days. On Thursday, a pair of ISIS suicide bombers attacked a Shiite mosque, killing at least 15 people and wounding 48 others. Those bombers were on foot. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider Abadi said he believes that the ISIS attacks were proof that they are facing military defeats and are desperately trying to target civilians after losing the initiative on the battlefield. This mirrors similar claims of desperation after previous bombings, though there has been little territory changing hands in recent weeks in Iraq. PKK strike back at Turkish Junta forces. Rocket fire hits Nazi police. A Turkish Junta police officer was killed and 2 wounded when suspected Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK freedom fighters fired a rocket at their armored vehicle in the town of Nusaybin near the southeastern border with Syria, security sources said on Sunday. Turkey's predominantly Kurdish southeast has been engulfed in its worst violence since the 1990s after a 2-year ceasefire between the state and PKK, which has waged a 3-decade insurgency for Kurdish autonomy, collapsed last July. The conflict has complicated international efforts to end the war in neighboring Syria. Ankara says that the Syrian Kurdish YPG militia, which has won U.S. support in the fight against Islamic State, has deep ties to the PKK and fears that its territorial gains in northern Syria will stoke Kurdish separatists inside Turkey. The PKK, considered a terrorist group by Turkey, the United States, and the European Union, but as we all know, freedom fighters fighting for a Kurdish state launched a separatist armed rebellion against the Turkish state in 1984 in a conflict that has killed more than 40,000 people, mostly Kurds. PKK fighters have sealed off entire districts of some towns and cities in the southeast and declared autonomy, prompting security forces to step up their operations. Viva PKK. Everyone, I stress, everyone be safe out there. See you all on Wednesday. Bye-bye, folks.